Hey everybody, good Tuesday morning. Welcome into your FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix here with Mary O'Connell, and we are wrapping up the last week of October and the pre-Halloween, I would call this one, with a little bit of spooktacular entertainment from Mary, Thomas Wasson, and Grace Sharkey. Mary, rumor has it that this is quite a ghoul-filled episode of Check Call.
I mean, there's definitely it's definitely I don't want to say our spookiest episode, because Grace and I really hit that out of the park with like mood lighting and flashlights and scary ghost stories, which were just funny, scary broker stories. But I definitely think it's probably one of our, there's a lot of tricks and treats in this episode for everyone. And we don't even make you tell a joke, which I realize that there's like, how not a lot of the country that doesn't understand the joke telling on trick or treat, but it's okay. It's just a weird St. Louis thing.
Yeah, I think that is a weird St. Louis thing because it doesn't happen here in Tennessee either. But I heard about it from you last year and I was kind of like, interesting. I don't know how I feel about
Yeah.
that. But today's episode, of course, is set to be a good one with the two of those fine folks on your guest list. And to bring it all back to Fright, of course, there's lots of horror stories that can go wrong when you come to when it comes to talking about scary things that happen in the freight world. As a broker, which is of course the focus of Check Call, what are some of the scariest things that can happen to you as you're helping some companies move their freight?
So I think it's something that, excuse me, that we're all seeing right now. Unfortunately, we are living in the scariest timeline, and that is, freight fraud, double brokering, having loads stolen, the increase of cargo theft. We're really like all of those are kind of you're going to have a really bad day at work, and don't want those to happen. But unfortunately, they're happening at such an alarming rate that we're all kind of having to live in a horror film every day, going to work and hoping that today is the day that our freight doesn't get stolen.
And when it comes to movies, obviously we know that there's always some tropes that happen in the scary movie, right? You've got the haunting or you've got the slasher. When it comes to tropes in freight that are actually scary, what are some of those other things? I'm thinking like the driver who refuses to get on tracking and then just ghosts you, right?
hmm I would say it's definitely when we actually touch on a couple different endings of how this can go, but when a driver doesn't answer you, and then you're forced to resort to the crazy ex-girlfriend method where you just hang up call, hang up call, hang up call every like constantly, for usually about 15 minutes, and then they end up answering, but that's a dramatic last resort. But no, it's definitely when a driver will go missing. That's a trope you don't want to see. And then also the what do you call it, when you lose all your paperwork, or when you get the email of like, oh, I think there's going to be a claim on this. That is definitely something that you don't want to see. You never want to see what I like to call the C word, which is claim. You never really want to see that. And then honestly, probably the spookiest thing that you never want to come across, and you just hope you don't have to, is a carrier that either has expired insurance and hasn't updated it yet, or they don't have insurance. And they're like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We don't need insurance. To me, that is probably one of the more frightening situations that you can find yourself in.
I would 100% agree with that. Or if you've got a carrier who said, yep, this driver's going to be taking this load, and then it ends up not being that driver, and then they get into an accident, and then things just turn into a big
Yeah.
old mess. When it comes to spooky freight, you've got some good stories there, which is some spooky shipping regulations around the world, and maybe some of the weird things that people are shipping as well. I got to know, Halloween candy, what does the freight space look like for that? Is it a big chunk of the market in like September, August, September?
No. I mean, it's a non-zero chunk of the market because like I think this year people are expected to spend more on Halloween than they ever have. I mean, if you look around the store, Halloween has definitely kind of, I don't want to say come for Christmas, but it's definitely increased in the amount of things you can find at like your Target, your Walmart, etc. There's more than just accessories and candy and costumes. It's decorations, and I mean, I've even gone so far as to see like, you know how at Christmas time you see those like lights that are snowflake lights that you can put on the outside of your house. I've even seen some of those that are like pumpkin and like Halloween related, which is great, but like that's not for me. I don't want to climb up on my roof more times than necessary. But no, it's definitely a pretty decent chunk of the space. And, as you kind of get into later September and early August, it's still pretty hot out. So that actually does create a shameless plug here. It does create more demand on the reefer market side of things because you got to keep that chocolate from melting. So there's definitely a decent chunk of market space for it.
It sounds like something that we should cover in Running on Ice, maybe our pre-Halloween episode. The one thing that's not scary about this week's episode is how easy it is to find it. Mary, we've got, of course, check out coming up a little bit later on this afternoon at about 12:30. Where can people go to catch the show?
Yeah, you can just keep watching here on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Although I don't think you would be able to watch it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I think you just listen to that. But that comes out at 2 p.m. Eastern today. Or no, that comes out at 12:30 Eastern today. I'm sorry. There's a newsletter, though, that will be full of some trick and treats, maybe a joke or two. And that will come out at 2 p.m. today. And you can subscribe to that on freightwaves.com/checkcall.
There we go. Head on over to do that. Thanks, Mary, for joining us. I hope that you have a great Halloween, and we will see you next week.
Bye.